Okay, so as you can see, I had to add wooden supports for the high bridge because the foam supports just weren't strong enough, but the foam should be okay for the rest of them, and these are absolutely fine. Underneath the Kato trestle, you actually have to add the little joiner kits they give you for Kato feet, and I guess you just cut the extruding parts off. This just gives it extra rigidity. On this side, I have actually glued the track to the trestle, again to give it extra strength. Well, the abutments are finally in place and the bridges are level. Not exactly perfect, they need a tiny bit of adjustment, but pretty good. And I can tell you that took an awfully long time to do. I used 3D printed abutments for the high bridge because I thought the Walters abutments, to be honest, they were just way too large. But yeah, that took a really long time to do in terms of lining everything up, getting the levels right. Looks not bad at all. So obviously we need a bit more foam and coverage around these posts, and the next stage will be covering the track there with plastercloth. As you can see, I've basically taken out all the bridges now because I've moved them over there. So next stage will be cover this in plastercloth, cover the woodland scenic risers in masking tape first because they have dips, then cover in plastercloth, and that should be easy to do. Okay, so all the masking tape is on to cover the gaps in the riser, and now we're constructing the tunnel system for the two tracks to hide the crossover. And I might put a little bridge there that I've made out of some Pico girders. Now we can start the very long job. I'm starting to put plaster cloth onto the foam, and there's a lot of foam to cover. So I've cut the plaster cloth into smaller pieces, and then we just wet this in the water and away we go. Okay, so I'm looking at a place I can put a bridge, and I've used the Micro Engineering and Kato bridges to death, probably the trestle bridges that you've seen, or deck bridges I think they are. So I've got a couple of these. I picked these up from a model show really cheaply actually. The ratio doesn't say what it is. Steel truss span, steel trestle. I don't think I need the truss span. There you go. Picked it up from £13. Not sure how much they are, and it's actually pretty good. So thank goodness it's actually code 83 track. In other words, it will fit Kato. And look, I've butchered a piece of Kato track that went across their deck bridge, if you remember one of my earlier videos, and it fits inside absolutely perfectly, which is exactly what we want. The trestle goes underneath it. We've got railings to go on top, so I think it will look really nice. And this plastic is very thick and very strong, so really good. Hopefully I can fit that in somewhere and it will look pretty good, so quite pleased with that. Putting the plaster cloth on is extremely messy. Where I have gaps, I use wadded up newspaper, which saves a lot of extra cutting with the foam, but as you can see, it makes a huge difference. So 4 large rolls of plaster cloth later, like the 8-inch rolls, not the smaller ones, as you might imagine, it's beginning to look quite good. Remember, this will be covered in rock formations or ground cover anyway, so it doesn't have to be super perfect, but you can see it's certainly getting there. As for here, As you would imagine, I've run out of plaster cloth, so I've covered the track. So now I can relay the track and test that, and then the rest of the plaster cloth can be applied when I'm ready. It's quite hard sometimes to get these little wrinkles out of the plaster cloth, like here. I find it you may have to sand it down. The best thing is just to press it down when it's still wet, but you can still press it down when it's dry. And then just test with the track. That's quite important. So in N scale it's quite important, in HO probably not so much so, because it won't affect the running. Right, the track's on. Had to make some very small adjustments to the track. There's also a little bits of plaster in unexpected places, but that happens. And as you know now, the track's on. There's only one way to fully test it. Okay, so starting the train here with one of the biggest and obviously the longest wagons. Let's see how it goes. I can already see that that bridge needs slight lifting up there by a millimetre or so. Around it comes. This is quite a squeaky engine, needs a bit of oil. Fits through the tunnel with a bit of headroom. Might need lifting up a little bit, and it stops here. There's a bit of dead track there that have to be sorted out. And okay, on the second circuit, let's see how it does. And there's obviously not a good join there, or a bit of dirty track there. Goes through tunnel number 1, okay. Although I can hear some track noise, so there's a join that's not ideal. Through tunnel number 2. And it's caught because the track's not aligned properly. Okay, and reversing. Let's see how it does. Yeah, that track there just off the bridge, maybe it's like ½ millimetre off in terms of height, so the loco wheels are catching on it. Through the tunnel. And to the bridge. A bit of dirty track there and there, that has to be. Okay, starting backwards, through the tunnel, no problem. Here's some track noise there, back around, stops there because there's obviously dirty track or a bad join, restarts again, over the bridge. And it stops. So there's still some work to be done in terms of track alignment. Has to be exactly spot on. I mean, this is why a lot of people lay their tracks just on the flat and they don't go for gradients. It has no problem doing the gradient, which is only a 2% gradient, and then I probably have to raise up some elements inside that tunnel. But yeah, it seems to work, but needs improvement. So often, as you can hear when the train goes round, you can hear and you can also feel the joints don't feel too good with Kato, which is quite unusual, but it does happen, and it doesn't mean bad alignment. It's just you can have track that's a little bit rough, like on this one this is dead smooth. On this one it's actually slightly rough, see my finger gets caught. So what I do in these cases is I very gently file that downwards. You can also file this, just take the uni joiner off and file that one down. I file that downwards, put a tiny little chamfer on it, like that. The same with these two. File it downwards. And I find that is a sneaky little trick that basically stops bad alignments, because it allows the train wheels to basically go over the gap, and it doesn't mess about with electrical conductivity. So that's my sneaky little trick for when you do get the odd uneven join in unitrack, which does happen sometimes. That's obviously what I'm going to have to do to my layout. So A few more notes on the layout here. So as you can see, I've used the plastercloth. It's actually quite thick plastercloth this time. For some reason, you get different qualities. And you can see here that I didn't smooth it. Now what some people do is they smooth the plaster all over the cloth, and what you end up with is that, because I haven't done that. And I'm very happy not to worry about that, because basically this is all going to be covered in rocks and scenery and all sorts. So I'm not that fussy about it. It's more to get the shape. As you can see, the shape of this river or lake valley or whatever it is there is quite nice. Anything extra you just cut off. That's the first thing. So what I'm going to have to do next is install some holes for the point wires, install some droppers, of which you can see some there. So I need, well, for something like this I would assume one dropper per circuit, probably a dropper here for the branch line, and a couple of extra droppers for these tracks there, just feeding down to the power bus. So I'm going to get that done. I'm obviously going to have to go and buy the rest of the plaster cloth, because I'm missing a fair bit of plaster cloth for the back here. And then finally I'm going to finish this modular tunnel. Now this is, might do this in the next video. Basically the idea of this is this lifts off and it fits between those two guides, and then what I'll do is I'll somehow finish this so it looks more realistic, because it doesn't at the moment. That one looks a little bit better. I had a rock here that was way too close to the track, so I'm going to have to move that somewhere else, but that's absolutely fine. And I think that probably is the end of this latest update, as I've got to go and buy some more materials, and then we will see where we get to. We might get on to finishing a few bridges and putting some rock molds on. I'm waiting for the Grange and Hodder baseboard, which will take me up to about there. It's quite narrow, and it will take these 4 tracks across. There won't be a lot of scenery to be done on that one, I don't think. And then I will glue the track down with, I use this stuff, Copydex. It's basically latex glue, because it allows you to easily remove the track if you need to, rather than Gorilla Glue, which swells and it's just too strong. So this is the stuff I use. I don't know if it's going to be good, because it might be that too much pressure makes the track move like that, but we'll see. I guess we'll see you in the next update.